Hi guys, Triarius Wargaming here. So summer is over and it is back to work for me. So I wanted to give you a little rundown on what I've been working on and what is to come. I did my little terrain showcase the other day, which has kind of been mainly my main focus. But what I would like to talk about now is a couple of the miniatures I painted, and then also some plans coming up for Historicon 2025 and 26. So 2026 is going to be the big collaboration with Ranger and our other gentleman, the International Man of Mystery. But I also want to talk about Historicon 2025, which our other gentleman can't make it, but Ranger might be going. I haven't even talked to him about it, but I've just been brainstorming some ideas. So if he's watching, he can respond. I'll probably message him as well. So onto the miniatures. First up, we've got a unit of the new Victrix hoplites that I completed. They are 36 men strong, and these were awesome to paint up. I really enjoyed doing these. I kind of undercoated them in a skeleton bone color, and then I was trying to get as colorful as possible. But the armor, and for the next unit of these, I want to actually even get more colorful. So I'll probably buy another 2 boxes of this set, which will give me 4 36 strong units. I like some of the character you can give these figures, but also I was really trying to put them sort of in the same-ish pose, so they would kind of fit together in a phalanx, but I did have that character figure leading the unit. So with the armors, I did try and not just do the armors in the plain white Linothorax look. I did try and, parts of them were white, but I did try and use some different colors on the Linothoraxes, different color tunics, different colored crests as well. In my opinion, in my view, these ancient armies were like really, really colorful, way more colorful than we often think. I'm trying to want to reflect that. I think these armies were anything but dull. So you can see I did leave a lot of the armor just white on these. I think the next unit, there will be plenty of them with the classic white Linothorax look, but I do want to experiment with even more color variation. So the other little thing I did, so this was kind of my Historicon treat, is I bought some Napoleonics, the Perry French box, and I bought some British too. So I painted these up. The idea was they might be used for skirmish gaming, but I also multi-based them because I wanted to see if you could do a way where they could be suitable for kind of skirmish gaming and then larger, if possible, later. So this is kind of how they would be laid out for like sharp practice, I was thinking, but I just don't think this works. So those would be the groups of 8 guys, even though there's more than 8 there, and then the skirmishers are in groups of 6. This just to me does not seem like enough for a game, and it also just looks kind of silly to me. So I don't know. You could see in Sharp's practice there are the officer figures too, so I did those officers separately. So I was trying to get the best of both worlds, and I just think that was kind of a fail. I was kind of interested at the scale comparison, so I feel like the regular French infantry are smaller than the Voltigeurs, which is kind of interesting in this box. Like the Voltigeurs are crouched over, and they're kind of almost like the same size, I felt like, as the Victrix hoplites, maybe a little more slender. But then you compare the French infantry to the Victrix hoplites, and the French infantry are absolutely tiny. The regular dudes. And the painting on those French is like I feel like the worst I've done. I think they're serviceable, but this was kind of an Agrax pump and dump kind of situation. Okay, here's the challenge. We'll give you the 360 spin here. Can you tell what is wrong with this grenadier officer kind of non-com guy I made up? So there is a huge problem with this figure, and I will reveal it in the next video. And if you can tell and this is not any of the manufacturer's fault, this is my fault. If you can tell the major error in that figure, I'll give you a shout out. So for the sake of fairness, I'll give you another run through of that video. You can skip ahead like a minute. if you don't want to look at it again. But what is the big problem with this figure? It's absolutely huge, and again, it's my fault. It's not any manufacturer's fault. But let me know in the comments, and if you get it right, I'll give you a huge shout out again in the next video. But yeah, this is pretty big in theory if you're a button counter. All right, y'all. So we have got our upcoming project. So going forward, there's kind of going to be a couple different vlog series that I'm going to do. So last year was all about all Strasbourg all the time. Pretty much 99% of what I painted last year and my videos were related to the Strasbourg stuff. And that whole thing was pretty stressful. So I kind of want to avoid that stress situation this year. Also, so at Historicon, I talked about in my Historicon video, but we decided as our group project, it's going to be 2026 when the meeting of the minds comes together. So what are we doing for the 2026 Historicon project? Well, I'm glad you asked. We are doing Wars for Sicily. Now, we haven't decided quite on a period yet or a specific battle yet. The sources for Sicily are a little mixed, let's just put it that way. You know, there's not great accounts of anything, to be honest. If you go outside, you know, the Romans or maybe Pyrrhus, I mean, even that stuff, you know, they say a battle was fought, but they don't say much about it. But what are we doing? We're doing Syracuse versus Carthage. Somewhere between, I guess, the 4th and 2nd centuries AD, or 5th and 2nd century AD, I guess. Somewhere in that time frame. So Syracusan Greeks versus Carthaginians, both sides using a lot of mercenaries as well. So my goal for the Syracusans, so I'm going to be doing both sides. I'll start off there. But my goal for the Syracusans is I want to do minimum 10 units of hoplites, ideally 12 units of hoplites. And those are going to be of some mixed types. So I want to do some Spartans and Thebans and whatnot, so they have use for, you know, wargaming ancient Greece or stuff like that. So the way things are going to go, and then, so yeah, we got those. So at a minimum, 360 hoplites, and then with 12 hoplites, 12 units of hoplites, that takes it into the low 400s. I just got back from work, so my brain is a little busted at the moment, but I want to start every month off with a hoplite tax, and if we do like 50 hoplites each month, we'll be in really good stead. So this is the hoplite tax for this month. Even though I technically already did a unit of hoplites this month, we'll see if we can get 2 units done this month. So this is what we got. So these are going to be a mix of Victrix and Wargames Foundry. So I showed you the new Victrix hoplites. These are going to be the old hoplites plus Wargames Foundry stuff. And included in there to make the numbers up are some that I actually did way back when I was starting out in the hobby. So these are not, this is the first Victrix I ever bought, this unit of Athenian hoplites, I think that these came from. And yeah, the paint job, it's my first time painting miniatures. I mean, it could be worse, to be honest, but it could be a lot better. So those will get a little brush up and make it into the units as well. The Wargames Foundry, some of them I started to paint. You can see back then I was painting from a black undercoat, but I actually gave up because it was too hard. Painting from the black undercoat, was just taking way too long. It was really hard, so I kind of put this project on the back burner. Also, I didn't want to ruin. At that time, it just took me so long to paint a miniature decently. I didn't want to ruin my Foundry stuff, and it was taking too long. So the whole thing went on the back burner, and I moved on to Republic and Romans. Okay, so that's the first thing we got. Now the second thing we've got is lots of cavalry, lots and lots of cavalry. So the second vlog series, of course, this is for 2026. So we'll do the Greeks this year and then the Carthaginians next year. But 2025, we already have a late Roman army ready for display. My thinking here is, what about the Siege of Rome? And I think it's 537 AD off the top of my head. What is going on in the Siege of Rome, 537 AD? Well, that is part of Justinian's attempts to rebuild the Roman Empire. So he sends his big bad boy Belisarius across the Mediterranean, and Belisarius first goes to North Africa, where he liberates North Africa from the Vandals. And then from North Africa, he goes to Sicily, takes over Sicily, reclaims it for the Byzantines, and then Belisarius goes into Italy itself and actually takes over a lot of southern Italy, and including the city of Rome in central Italy. And when he takes over Rome, he's fighting then the Goths. So there's this whole war of early Byzantines versus Goths. So the Siege of Rome, the sieges is really cool to read about. We actually have a great source for Belisarius in Procopius. Now, if you know anything about those ancient sources, you'll know that Procopius is quite biased. Procopius is a big fan of Belisarius and tries to big him up a lot. And the Battle for Rome, though, actually was a Byzantine defeat. But what I would like to do is continue to expand my late Roman East stuff with what I've already bought, and add in some of these East Roman units while we work on the Greeks. And I think we should be able to do both. And we'll also have to add a bunch of barbarian cavalry as well. Okay, so just the units that we're going to be working on in no particular order. We've got some conventional late Roman cavalry. First on the docket, there's no real order that matters that I do this in, really. We have got some early Byzantine bucellarii. So those bucellarii literally means hard tack eaters. These would be Belisarius's personal bodyguard type troops. He would hire them, and they used both lances and bows, which was kind of a new troop type emerging in the time period, basically based off of Hunnic warfare. The early Byzantine army was very Hunized. I don't know exactly how you would say that, but the early Byzantines really started to adopt Hunnic cavalry tactics using archery and lancers, and the bucellarii have been drawn from multiple ethnic groups and whatnot, just the best fighters that could be found and put in a unit and trained up together. And yeah, we got a commander as well to go with that. Okay, we've got some Moorish cavalry, the late Roman light cavalry using the North African Moorish heads, which actually there were Moorish light cavalry units present at that Battle of Rome. But I also I actually made up this unit before I even did the research on that and found that out, because I just wanted to have a kind of unique unit with the Moorish light cavalry. Okay, and then finally we have got a bunch of horse archers. These are the late Roman horse archer set from Victrix, but they've got barbarian head stuck on. So the idea behind these is, depending on what game you're playing, these could function pretty well as like Hunnic allies. I don't think they look like true Huns because they've got the kind of Germanic-y heads, but I think they could do pretty well as Alans, who were an Iranian people, an Iranic people. They spoke an Iranian language, and they could do pretty well as maybe some kind of Turkic group. subject to the Huns. So I think they could work pretty well in that capacity, like Hunnic tribal allies, not true Huns, but from a different steppe people who maybe looked a little, they didn't look as Asian, I guess. You could put it that way. More of like a Turkic or Iranic look. So I put quite a few of the Spangen helms and stuff in there because that is a Iranic style helmet and whatnot. Captured Roman helmets as well, blah, blah, blah. But where they can also serve, the capacity they'll also serve is in the battle for Rome. Belisarius gains the confidence to sally out of the walls of Rome because he receives about 1,500 reinforcements drawn from the east, Foederati, horse archer cavalry. So it's either 1,500 or 2,500, just off the top of my head. Foederati arrive drawn from the steppes, so they were Huns and Slavics type peoples and whatnot. I can't remember quite off my head, but there was several different horse archer ethnic groups in those reinforcements. So I have Huns as well. So we'll do up some Huns to go along with it and all. But these ones I just had to hand and could assemble. All right, so enough blabbering on. This is kind of the work table. So we've got 36 Greeks, and then 12, 24, 36, 48, plus 3, 51 cavalry to do. So, I mean, that is quite a bit. I think, we'll try and get those hoplites all done first, the hoplite tax, and then we will pick one of these units to do. I kind of almost want to do the horse archers first, to be honest. The horse archers are calling to me a little bit. Okay, so what we'll do, we're gonna go to some maps. I'll just talk about the Battle of Rome really quickly, and then we'll leave it there. To end this video, I do want to talk a little bit about this Siege of Rome situation. So this is kind of what I want to do for Historicon 2025, because basically I have the majority of the figures for it. We'll just need to do some terrain and some extra cavalry and whatnot, but it's very doable now that the bulk of those late Roman and barbarian forces are completed. So I think Ranger is interested in doing something World War II-ish as well. And again, I haven't talked to him at all really about it, but I think there could be some potential to do both. I think, if he can't make it even, I would understand. I mean, it's a very long journey for him compared to me. But I think it would be good to maintain a presence there and get people kind of excited for the next year as well when we're going to have another huge battle. So the Siege of Rome is pretty interesting. As you can see, I mean, I know I'm just talking over the stupid map, but this is kind of a historical recreation of it. I will have one last map what the game might actually look like. But what I would do is make some of the walls of Rome, not all of them. The battle is actually fought in two sides of the River Tiber. Actually, the Milvian Bridge is kind of not a key part of the battle, but it would be on the table. The battle for the Milvian Bridge is all on one side of the Tiber, basically, until the army of Maxentius or Maximus or whatever, the loser, they run back over a pontoon bridge and it collapses and they drown. It's kind of a bizarre battle in some respects. But anyways, there's kind of two sides of the battle is kind of fought on both sides of the river, with the main battle on that right side of the map. So I would make some of the walls of Rome, I think, which could be cool. The Byzantine army was heavily cavalry. So yeah, you can see on the left side of the river, there was, when it says volunteer Roman infantry, they were literally like conscripts of the city of Rome. And then Valentinius, he actually had a cavalry command of the Moorish cavalry. And then on the right side of the river, you can see Belisarius mainly had a cavalry force. And then Principius and Tarmatus, whatever their names are, they controlled the infantry, who were basically almost the entire Byzantine army was mounted except for these few units of Isaurians. The Isaurians were like a hill tribe from Turkey. The Gothic army, on the other hand, was mostly infantry, but also significant cavalry too, and potentially even fully barded heavy cavalry that you sometimes see manufacturers sell. So this is a Command and Colors rendition of that same map. So the previous map was maybe a more academic-y map of the battle. This Command and Colors one is kind of the board gamified version of the same map. So you can see, and this would be way easier to recreate, obviously, on the tabletop versus the other map, because the other map, was very sprawling at odd angles and everything as well. This one, it's kind of condensed, flattened out almost, and I think this could be very replicable, let's put it that way, versus the other format, which will require like a massive table. Whereas this, you could do this on a more conventional kind of style table. So really, what we need to do if I decide to go this route, again, I do want to check in with Ranger and all that. But basically, what we would need, and again, actually, I'm looking at this. I wouldn't do the exact setup of the units here because I don't feel like they're entirely accurate compared to the other map. But we kind of get the same general idea. The Byzantine cavalry was not deployed on the flank, for example, it was deployed in front of the infantry. And the infantry's job in this battle was not to engage the enemy, the infantry under Principius. The infantry for the Byzantines on this side was more to form a reserve that the Byzantine cavalry could retreat behind if the battle went poorly. Well, spoiler alert, the Byzantine infantry did not come out of this battle intact, let's just put it that way. The Byzantine infantry suffered heavy casualties, and I think including the loss of both commanders on the right side of the river. So this game is pretty interesting. The Byzantines are sallying out from the walls of Rome, so I would like to build at least a portion of the walls of Rome, which can be useful in tons of situations. There's just as like a cool backdrop on tables. Like a lot of late Roman battles occur outside of city walls and stuff like that. So I think that could be cool. We could build the Tiber River, which I have some ideas about. I would kind of like to build the Milvian Bridge, and then look, I've got half the number of bridges I need to do the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. I may probably need more late Roman infantry really to do that game, but you got to start somewhere. I think this has a lot of potential. It won't require a lot more troops to paint up. Add some cool terrain. The Goths, they kind of were besieging Rome. Obviously, I've said that quite a few times. But what's kind of interesting about this battle is there are a number of different, I think the Goths in total had 7 different camps around the city of Rome. They weren't able to do a true encirclement of the city. The city was just too big. So they had a number of different siege camps. And they actually built siege engines, which were destroyed by the defenders, like siege towers and stuff like that, which you don't often hear about barbarians building. But these Goths, by this point in time, like we are generations onwards from when the Goths crossed the Rhine, and they'd even captured late Roman army weapons and armor factories and incorporated that into kind of their own kingdom. So the barbarian infantry actually was very well equipped, and the cavalry was very well equipped, even including almost cataphracts. So when you see those miniatures sold as Goths that are like super heavily armored cavalry, that's kind of more from this period than that initial Gothic incursion across the Danube, which is, like generations and generations before this, really. So anyways, that's enough of my rambling. If you made it this far, you deserve a cookie. Maybe you're listening to this while painting or something. But anyways, hope you have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video here.